Today I am joined by Stuart Thornhill. Hi, Stuart.
Hi.
And today we're going to discuss character creation and progression. So, are you a DM?
I am, yes. Been known to run games where I've said, okay, everybody starts as 5th level, everybody starts as 8th level, or I've even run a couple of one-shots where everyone's higher level. And I like them to give me ideas about what the kind of thing they want to make.
Yeah.
So, okay, you want to make a half-elf. Okay, well, tell me about this half-elf. Where are they from? Give me a little bit more information. Okay, you want to make them a wizard. Okay. I've had players where we've used the old original rolling rules. How the dice fall, you got an 8. Okay, you put the 8 somewhere. You got 4. Well, I mean, re-roll 1s when I'm rolling is my rule, is my home rule when I'm running sessions. If you're rolling a 1 on a level up, if you're rolling a 1 on a character build initially for your stats, then re-roll it, because you never know. If it keeps coming up 1, then just accept that 1.
Yeah.
But we roll 4d6, take the lowest, and then just add the top 3 together, and that's your total. It can give some pretty high stats, but it can also give some really interesting ones. One of my campaigns I actually ran, the players were given the original, the first number you roll goes in your strength, and then next one goes in your dex. Now, what that made for is some really interesting characters, because it meant the wizard had a negative intelligence, and the person playing the wizard played that wizard with their negative intelligence really well. And so it gives people the option of playing to their character's strengths and weaknesses when I set that rule for that particular game. If you come up with a character and I think it will fit into the story, great. I've run campaigns where I've not had a single healer.
Yeah.
No healing whatsoever. And it's been like, well, what are we going to do? We've got no healer. You have to get potions. Or your half-casters or your spellcasters, they take a healing spell later on as they get higher levels. Like rangers, I've got a campaign that had 3 rangers in it to start. Not one of them took a healing spell until they got to 3rd level. Because when they hit 2nd level, they were like, okay, well, I want Hunter's Mark. Because without a ranger without Hunter's Mark, might as well just be shooting a bow and arrow normally. So they're like, oh, I want Hunter's Mark. And then they were at 3rd level. Oh, we keep getting knocked down. All right, well, I'll take Cure Wounds. But parties tend to spend a lot of money on potions.
So you've got those players who will do like you say and will randomly come about a random character. And that is, I think, who I am. I don't have any prejudice against playing any race or class. I don't think rangers are boring. Fighters are just swords swingers, you know?
For me personally, if I'm making a character, I could pretty much make any character. The only one I won't make is a warlock. I don't like warlocks. I don't care if my players play a warlock. Personally, I don't like playing a warlock. I don't like the restriction on spell slots that you get with a warlock.
So there are also people who create from a template, like I want to play Batman, and therefore decide, am I going to be a monk or am I going to be a rogue? You know, so they go that way around, don't they?
I in a one shot, I think it was a level 20 one shot. We ran Tiamat against this party, and I said, okay, you're 20th level characters, and you go in, and I didn't tell them anything. I said, the heroes from your village, you've been granted these magical dragon slaying weapons, and they all turned up, and they'd all been sent to destroy a particular coloured dragon, and they turn up and they get teleported to where Tiamat is being summoned, but they still haven't quite worked it out, and then all of a sudden 5 heads come through. They're like, oh, now we get it. One of them decided that he was going to build a character based on Doctor Who. So he went, okay, well, I'm going to be a wizard. So he leveled up. So he picked his wizard levels and his wizard spells based on the Doctor. So, but he took like tinkering tools and stuff as his extra thing. So he could do like the fixing of equipment and stuff. And he just looked like the Doctor when he described his character. This is what I'm aiming for. And he built it up to that point where he went, okay, they eventually won and beat Tiamat, but only for a wish spell.
So there's backgrounds, isn't there? And how that shapes motivations. You know, do you think the background should not only create a story of where they came from, but how the through drive of
One of the good things I do like about the new Unearthed Arcana that Wizards released is that you don't get your bonuses from your race anymore. You get them for a background. So you could be whatever race you want, but your backgrounds are the ones that decide how good your strength is or your dexterity is and stuff like that, which I thought was amazing. But I just never implemented that in my own games before. But yeah, no, background is very important because I've got a lot of people who like playing sages, and the good thing is that a lot of the places players visit are places with libraries, and if they're struggling for where they can find information on the people they're facing and stuff like that, well, there's a library. Maybe you can find that information there. One of my players was absent for a couple of weeks when we first started playing, and they'd gathered a scroll of comprehend languages. They'd found a book that they couldn't read. So while they were gone, I said, okay, this is what they said. Okay, while I'm not available, can I be researching this book? Can I reading this book? And they went, yeah, okay, fair enough. How much gold do you have? And I went, oh, I've got X, Y, Z. Okay, well, while you were busy, you found yourself a job and you earned money to buy more scrolls to read the book. By the time they got back, they'd learned another language because they'd spent so much money on this, on the spells to read the book in the first place, that by the end of it, they didn't need the spells and they could just read it.
Backgrounds, yeah, you can play your character through those, and they do grant you certain things. There's one of them, I can't remember which one it is, whether it's acolyte or something, but you can go into holy places and just get rooms for the night for free.
Yeah, I'm running Tomb of Annihilation at the moment, so the party's in the middle of the jungle. So things like the acolytes and the guild merchants and all the rest of them, they don't really have much of a place in the middle of the jungle. But yeah, they've been known to tap into their backgrounds and go, okay, well, this is my background. Can I use this to find somewhere to stay for the night, or can I use this to try and get some food for the day? I know that the ranger in the Tomb of Annihilation game uses one of it's either his class ability or his background ability to be able to find them shelter every day.
Yeah, that's good.
It may not be shelter from creatures that are around, but it's shelter from elements and stuff like that. Somewhere that's safe enough where they find it, and then they obviously put watches on and stuff, and depending on how roll depends on how well they sleep.
Yeah. Another thing that comes up is your intelligence score, your ability scores, or your strength. You know, who wants to break down this door? Oh, my strength is XYZ.
Yeah, this group that is playing Tomb of Annihilation is made up of quite a few new players, which I'm actually surprised they've stuck around, because they want to play it, but this is the adventure we're playing. So for them to say, oh, my strength is XYZ, I'm fine with. But for the more experienced ones, I don't want to know what your strength is. You know what your strength is, so you should discuss amongst yourselves whether or not you think you're strong enough to break down the door. Not, oh, my strength is X, I've got plus X to strength. If you roll really low on the dice, it doesn't matter what that plus is.
Yeah.
My player's worst enemy is a door. Every game I've ever run, doors are the things that people struggle with most. Oh, they could beat a goblin, they could beat a skeleton. A door? Okay, well, the rogue. Oh, I'm going to try and pick the lock. You roll the thieves' tools check. Oh, you failed. Okay, barbarian. Oh, I'm going to try and smash the door down. Strength check. Oh, you failed. Wizard. I'm going to turn the handle. Oh, the door was unlocked all along.
What about when somebody else, after the rogue has failed their thieves' tools chest, says, "Can I borrow your thieves' tools?" and have a go and rolls?
Okay, so I've never had anyone say, "Can I borrow your thieves' tools to have a go?" I've had players say, "Well, the thief or the rogue couldn't get through. Can I try with my dagger?" And I'll say, "Yes, roll, but it's just a straight up no proficiency. It's just a straight up check to see whether or not you can get the door broken. If you're using a sword, then I'd say it's a strength check. If you're using like a dagger or a fine blade, it's probably a dexterity check." But I've never had anyone say, "Oh, can I borrow your tools?" Because that would be a roll with disadvantage, because you're not proficient in it and you have no idea what you're doing. If you get lucky, then you get lucky. but you could also break the thieves' tools.
Yeah. Now, also, what about notable features? Do characters that you run have like, I always wear this hat. I have an eye patch.
Yeah, I do like that. I do like when players come and say, okay, I want my character to have a limp. Okay, your character has a limp. It doesn't impede your movement all the time, but if you're running for a long period of time, then eventually it will impede your movement. I had a player who had he made himself a fighter, and his fighter had a condition where whenever he went into combat, afterwards he'd have to make a Constitution saving throw or take a level of exhaustion. So he was always very wary of fighting. He was always like, well, I'd rather not fight, because I know if I fight, I'm going to become tired, and I'm not going to be as useful the next time if we're having a fight. That was supposed to be a long campaign, but it lasted about a month because all the players unfortunately had other problems and they had to pull out.
Yeah.
But it was good because he rolled his dice and he came up with these stats and went, actually, I want to put this one in here. I want to put this one in Constitution. I want to put this low number in Constitution. And as a fighter, you don't really want to be putting a low number in Constitution. He said, no, but I want to put that in there because I want them to have this disability. I want them to have a flaw because it works with the group dynamic. Another player built a druid, and it was like, well, I want to do something different with my druid. And I said, well, okay, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I want them to have fallen asleep in like a fairy ring. Okay, so you want them to have like fallen through to the Feywild. Oh yeah, okay. All right. So if there's a table that every day you roll, and something happens to you every morning when you wake up, or don't wake up, because that's one of the options on the roll. You roll a d20, a number pops up. That's what's happened to you today. He spent a lot of time with the legs of a fawn because that was just what he would roll. But he would grow mushrooms on his body, and the mushrooms had special abilities. So they would buy like healing mushrooms and poison mushrooms and invisibility mushrooms, and every day he would have different mushrooms. Now this was a homebrewed thing that I did, but he was like, I really want my druid to have something different. I was like, oh, okay, well that works.
And what you've described there is just a flaw, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was what he wanted his character to have. He said, okay, well, this is what I want my character to have. Okay, well, we'll try and incorporate that, take similar to what's already there, and we'll give you other things to go with it. And he went, oh yeah, no, that works. But that's what I like, flaws in characters. Yeah. I don't want your character to be all and end all perfect. I've got players who play rangers who never miss, like the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from the 80s with Eric's never miss bow and all the rest of it. And that's all well and good because you've got one character that rarely ever misses, and the others, but that's their flaw. Their flaw is that they're just too good. He's like, oh, I can hit this target. And it's when he misses that people are like, oh, well, you're really good. You can hit every time, but sometimes you don't hit. And it's the crucial times when you don't hit that could be the difference between life and between one of your players being killed by a bull and rescuing them. That was a funny little thing that happened.
Yeah, flaws are definitely my favourite thing because ideals are all well and good, but I don't think players play to ideals.
I don't see. This is the one. I don't agree with alignment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with alignment being set by your flaws, your ideals, and all the rest of it. I don't agree with that at all. I think that your alignment is determined by how you play the character. I run sessions for a group of kids, and I said when we built characters, you don't get an alignment. They were like, oh, what's alignment? Don't worry about alignment. Alignment is what I determine your alignment to be. And as they started playing, it came out that quite a lot of them are chaotic evil. Some of them are more neutral. Some of them are lawful good. But quite a lot of them are murder hobos, and they just want to go out and kill everything. And I'm like, okay, there you go. Your alignment is set because that's how they played them. I never said, oh, you have to be X, Y, Z. You have to play your character like this. They found the character, they designed it, they built it, and then they started playing the character. So it's like playing a video game. You build your character at the very beginning, and then you go around meeting people, and you answer the questions. And you've got some that's a good question, some that's a neutral question, some that's an evil question. They would always be the one that would go for and to get people on people's bad side. That's how they were playing their characters. I'm like, that's great, because you need to do that. You need to have someone that does that, because it actually evens the party out sometimes. But it's a bunch of kids, and they're all aged between, I think the youngest is 10 and the oldest is 14. But yeah, it's a bunch of kids. They're there to have fun. They're there to roll dice. At the end of the day, there's no set campaign for them. They turn up every week. If I miss a week, someone else will run it. Oh, what happened last week? Oh, we got X, Y, Z. Okay, well, we'll incorporate that into this week. None of the kids play paladin. They all play wizards or thieves or monks. None of them play a paladin. And I think that's because they're not quite sure about a paladin. But I don't expect if you go around stealing stuff from people, that's your choice. If you go around killing people, that's also your choice. There's always a way out of situations by talking to it if you know the language you're speaking. I've recently had one player join to the Tomb of Annihilation game. And I said, okay, one of the languages you know is Grung. You speak Grung. You hate frogs. You speak Grung, so you know when they're around, so you know when to avoid. Because the other players kept trying to go to Dongrunglung, and they kept getting attacked by the frogs, and they kept trying to speak to them, and they didn't understand. There was a language barrier. No one understood what the other person was saying. If you can speak the language, you can get your point of view across. You can avoid the conflict, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to impart in the kids, is that you don't have to attack everyone. You don't have to kill anyone. You won't get the information you require if you kill the contact.
I think that when people create characters and it comes to languages, they're sort of thinking, well, what campaign are we playing? They're not thinking like, what makes sense for my character? It's like, oh, I'll just pick Abyssal because there might be something, Abyssal with.
When picking languages, I do recommend that players go, okay, where are you from? Where's your character from? Where have they been? Do they have what job did they have before they became an adventurer? Because this is one of the big things. What were you before you became an adventurer? Oh, I was a shopkeeper. Okay, then. Well, were you a traveling shopkeeper? Did you go to other places, or were you a stay-at-home shopkeeper that stayed in your village? Oh, well, I stayed in my village. Okay, then. What are the chances that a lot of foreign races would come through, like Aarakocra or Dragonborns and stuff like that? I don't know. The most common languages to know are Dwarvish, Elvish. Everyone knows Common, Dwarvish and Elvish, and maybe Gnomish, if you deal with gnomes often. So I say, okay, well, you're in your village. You don't really see many outsiders, so you're not going to know the language. But you'll know the common people that come through, the elves, the dwarves, maybe the gnomes. So you're not going to have the experience. So, okay, so I would stick with the basic languages, basic ones that everyone pretty much knows anyway. And then we go from there. Oh, I can know another language. Okay. Do you like to read? And this is a bit where background comes into it. Do you like to read? Do you spend a lot of time in the library? Maybe you read books in Abyssal. Maybe you read books in Sylvan. I have a player who's playing an Aarakocra, who is actually playing a duck, but it's an Aarakocra base, and they know Sylvan, and they have a companion that is a blink dog, and it's sort of like, great, you found a reason to know that language.
Yeah,
otherwise, why do you know this language? Why do you know? Why do you know Undercommon? Oh, I'm playing a Dark Elf. Okay, that's fine. You know Undercommon because you're playing a Dark Elf. You know Undercommon because you're Deep Gnome. Brilliant. Great. These are reasons to know these languages. You know Abyssal. Oh, well, why do you know Abyssal? I don't know. It sounded good. It's got fit with your backstory. It's got fit in with what you did before you became an adventurer. If everyone has the same language selection, they come across a creature they can't speak to, there's going to be frustration, and then there will be the conflict. And that makes for great adventures, from what I found.
What do you think about starting wealth versus starting equipment?
If they've never played before, or have only played a couple of times, we'll go with equipment. Because that way you get your base and then you know where you're going. If they've been playing for a while, then I would tend to go, okay, well, we'll look at starting wealth, starting money. And then, but it also depends on what level as well. If you're starting at first level, then starting equipment is great. But if you're starting at higher levels, then, okay, you've been adventuring for a while. Maybe you've got magical weapons. Maybe you've picked up a more advanced weapon. Maybe you carry a trident instead of a javelin. Maybe you carry 2 long swords instead of just 1 short sword.
When players die and there's someone holy, I'd expect that holy person to be replaying, to be role playing. Well, we need to bury this body. We need to say a few words. They always walk off.
Yeah, no, like I said, they transported the body back to a sanctuary where they could rest, and or we could be laid to rest. There was a ceremony. I tried to get I'm terrible at role playing big speeches. I hate it. So I tried to get the players to do speeches about the friends that they'd lost. I want you to tell me what words you're saying about your lost companion. What words would work in this situation? And it worked quite well. But I don't do voices. I don't do any of that. I'm there along for the ride. They're the ones telling the story.
How do they go on with talking to each other, player to player?
When I talk to them with their character names. I like players who talk together as a group, as players, as what their character would say, and rather than what they as a person would. Now, when with the kids, it's slightly different. They tend to go off on little tangents, and I have to get them back on script. Now, we only run sessions for 2 hours with the kids, and they total game time. They probably get maybe an hour per week after everyone's arrived and we've finally gotten down to the nitty gritty of playing. They probably get an hour a week.
Characters multi-classing then?
It's a bit of a weird one. I don't mind multi-classing. However, I want there to be a thematic reason why you're a different class. Why are you 2 classes? I had a player who was playing a monk who got separated from the rest of the party. So I ended up running 2 different. It was a text-based session on Discord. So I was running a separate chat with this one player of what was happening while they were separated from everyone else, and everyone else was on the search for the initial in the main chat. And when they finally found the monk, the player and I had been discussing it, and I said, "Okay, well, you've been left behind." "Oh, well, I'm going to get really angry." "Okay." And they said, "Can I take a level in barbarian?" "Of course you can," because it worked for their character's story. It works for how the character progresses. I don't want to meet a character that's like 3 different classes and go, "Okay, well, why are you this?" "Oh, I don't know. It sounded cool. I had the numbers for it." It has to fit with your story. I don't. The whole thing in the player's handbook where it says you have to be X, Y. You have to have an intelligence of X to be this as a multi-class. You have to be an intelligence or a charisma of this X to be a. I don't hold with that. I think if it fits your character and if it works, then you should be able to have these options. I've got a couple of players at the moment who are like, "Well, I want to be arcane trickster." "Okay. Why do you want to be an arcane trickster?" "I want to know magic." "Okay, but why do you know magic? How do you know magic? You've not used magic at all up to this point. How do you know magic?" And one of the players was like, "Well, while on my watches, I've been studying and reading and trying and practicing. That's why he's gone down the arcane trickster." Now, it's slightly different to multi-class, but it's a similar thing. Why does a non-magic user suddenly know magic?
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, well, the other one is, well, I don't really, I'd like to go down the arcane trickster route, but I'm not quite sure. So, all right, hold off on the arcane trickster route. And because it's 2 of Annihilation we're running, I'm thinking when they die, I might introduce a slightly different rule than they're straight up dead. I might give them an option to keep their character alive, but having made a deal with a demon or something, and they come back as a warlock.
Mm.
So they've got that magic, but they've got something different about them. They're back, but they're not the same.
Well, that's very difficult in Tomb because of the main.
Yeah, because of
Tomb.
But I mean, there are still options. That's still options. I mean, for Tomb of Annihilation, it's probably not going to work. But for the other games, it's sort of like this could happen. You could have a moment where you make this deal with a demon to not die.
Yeah.
Make a deal with an archangel, and they bring you back, or a deity, and they bring you back.
Yeah.
But if the thing is, if they bring you back, you have to follow their path. So you either come back as a cleric or a paladin if it's a deity, or if you make an agreement with someone, it's a warlock.
Yeah.
And that's how I would do multi-classing of other things works. Monks and barbarian works really well. I built as a player, my players were absent one Wednesday, so I built myself a character. I built myself a barbarian druid, and the druid only knew bear forms to turn into. I called them a bear-barian.
Like it.
And they were a totem of the bear barbarian. And I said, okay, well, they've got most of the levels in druid, but they've got the levels in barbarian to level them to get them to their bear totem. And I had a whole background worked out where they'd spent all their life surrounded by bears and all the rest of it, and so their bears is what they knew. They didn't know anything else. They'd fresh gone out into the world, and they discovered that there are other creatures other than bears. And they had an encounter where they got really angry, and they took the level in barbarian, and they started to rage, and they kept going through the barbarian levels until they got to that third level of barbarian. I was like, that's in my mind how it worked. So they started as the druid, and then they went up, and then they got angry, and then they became the bear, and then they became the bear that they've always wanted to be, as it were.
I said to my son, why don't people play like wizard barbarians because a wizard needs the health? And he's just like, because it just wouldn't work. And I'm like, why wouldn't it work?
So this is sort of side topic in terms of the homebrew stuff again. It could totally work. I even homebrewed a feat that basically says you are so angry you can concentrate on one spell. So you can cast one spell as a barbarian, 1 turn per rage. So you're so angry, you're like, and then you cast your spell. But that's it, then it's done. You could totally do it.
Yeah. I know you've got to spread out your scores. And you say, well, you're neither one thing nor the other. You're meant to be good at spell sort of stuff, but you're meant to be good at strength. Well, just even them out. I mean, you're rolling dice from 1 to 20. You don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, you've got depending on what you're adding to it, you've still got a 5% chance per increment of that D20 of getting above or below what you need.
It's different for me. As a DM, try anything. Just try anything. It sounds cool. And they're like, no, but I want to fight and be able to hit, or I want to fight and be able to spell successfully.
I can see why that I've got players that are like that, but I've also got I mean, one of my players is my daughter's age, and he's like, oh, well, I want to do this, and all the rest of the party says, no, and I said, no, hold on, let him try it, let him do it, because they're not going to learn, and if he was playing a video game and he wanted to do it, he'd just do it in a video game. You can't say, oh, you can do whatever you want, and then say, oh, well, no, you can't do that, because it doesn't work like that. It doesn't give people the option and the availability of being able to do it.
So players and that, they're always looking for characters that they want to play. But what about when they start playing a character and they say, do you know what? I'm going to slit my own throat. I don't like this character. How do you get out of playing a character you don't like?
Okay, so I would say, if a player came up and said, oh, I don't like this character, I want to kill them, I would say, well, hold off on that. Because you may not like this character now, but don't kill it. Because in my games, once a character's dead, that's it. Maybe put it to one side. Maybe look at building a different character. I will give your character a reason to wander off. We'll give your character a reason to leave the party and your new one to join. So when the new players started playing Tomb of Annihilation, they all had pre-generated characters. The ones that came in at the start set. So there was a cleric, there was a couple of fighters,
Yeah.
And a rogue. And after about a month of them playing their characters, because getting new players to build a character straight away and they could jump straight in can be quite overwhelming. Because building a character when you've never done it before, straight off the bat, you have no idea what any of the numbers mean. So I said to the players, okay, here's a character, a pre-generated character for you to play. You're going to play this character. You're going to roll some dice. You're going to learn what the numbers mean. You're going to learn how to roll them. You're going to learn where your strengths are and where your weaknesses lie when it comes to what you think will come from your character. And then I was absent for a week, so I had one of the more experienced players in the group run through a character building session with them, the new players. So they came in and they built their forever characters. They built the characters they wanted to progress longer through the game with. Right, great. There we go. Brilliant. You've now got your own character you've built from the ground up. And so you can now take that character forward.
Well, Stuart, thank you for sitting down and talking with me.
You're very welcome. It's been fun.
Yeah, great. And thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much.